Good afternoon. Please welcome Chief of Staff for Customer Experience at Slack, Kristen Swanson.
Good afternoon, everyone. How many people are having a good day so far? Woo. All right. How many people are also simultaneously about to head into the post-lunch crash? A couple people. Don't worry, we'll get you with some coffee right after this. Well, welcome. You're in Making Better Decisions Quickly. I'm so excited to have you here today. Before we get started, turn to the person sitting next to you and say hello. All right. Here's what we're going to talk about today. By the end of our time, we want you to understand the organizational research behind making better decisions quickly. We want you to know exactly how this looks in Slack, and we have an amazing guest that you'll meet in a bit to share more. And last, we are going to talk about how you can take practical tips back to your team tomorrow, because there's nothing worse than sitting in a conference all day and not having those practical tips that you can jumpstart your practice and your work the next day. So we're going to focus on that as well. As you heard, I am the Chief of Staff for Customer Experience. And that means that we handle customer inquiries on my team across the globe that come in all shapes and sizes. We handle the wedding photos that you send to us with your Slack socks on because Slack helped you plan your wedding. We handle that frustrating moment when you can't get the admin settings just right. And we handle everything in between. If you've ever used /feedback, how many people have tried /feedback? All right, a couple. You've talked to the amazing people on my team. And my team does their best work when they get fast, accurate, empathetic responses out to our customers. So this is a topic that I personally am really passionate about. So let's dive in. This is probably not the first time you've heard this today, but the way in which we work is changing. If you think about your job, even 5 years ago, just 5 years ago, it probably looked drastically different. At my first job out of college, I could not access email unless I physically went to my office and sat down at my desk and logged into my computer. And I can tell you now that probably between 14 and 17 people have tried to message me since I got on stage based on the vibrations in my back pocket. So it's a completely different way of working today than it was just a short while ago. And that's because our cultural norms are shifting. Information used to be top-down. It would trickle through the organization, it would get siloed, and it was slow. And things are different today. They're different today not just in our world of work, but in all aspects of our lives. Information is now at people's fingertips all the time. Information is networked. Information comes at you from every place and every space and every person, whether they're in your organization or not. How many people have communicated with someone back in their organization at some point today? That's pretty much everyone in this room. And that's because the flow of information is what keeps business going. Let's consider a couple of examples from the industry. Here's an example of a factory in which cars are made. My dad used to be a mechanic, and when he looks at how cars are made today versus how cars were made when he was working, it's fundamentally different. And one of the key changes is speed. The design cycle for cars has dropped from 5 years on average to 2 to 3 years in just the last couple of months. And that's critical. That's critical because we are able to make decisions better. We are able to get that product that customers want and need in their hands faster, and we're able to do a better job. Now, the next example that we see often is one of my favorites, and it's fast fashion. So if you think about how fashion used to work, it used to come in seasons. There would be the spring collection and the fall collection. And now in the world of fast fashion, we can take a concept from design in a day to 5 days of manufacturing, and then in just a month, we see the coat or the shoes or the bag in stores. And I think that this is really important because customers expect us to help them, and they expect us to help them fast. And making better decisions quickly is really, really important. But speed's not the only indicator here. With all of the information and with the speed at which it arrives, for it to have value in the business, you absolutely need to prioritize that information. And it can't just be you that's prioritizing that information. It needs to be everyone on your team. They need to know what they can put off till later, what they should act on now, and most importantly, respond in the same way. This alignment is what takes fast, voluminous information and turns it into business impact. This kind of visibility for you helps not only you and your organization, but also all of your customers. So ask yourself, how can I connect the right people with the right information at the right time to get a resolution quickly? Think about it for a moment. Turn to that person that you introduced yourself to at the start. What's one thing in your line of work that would benefit if the right people had the right information at the right time more quickly? Go for it. All right, let's hear one example from the audience. Who has one example? Raise your hand for me. We've got some mic runners. This is the part where you raise your hand. Raise your hand for me. Yes! Can we get a mic runner over here? You can speak loudly? Okay. Contract negotiations, absolutely. We will even have an example video in Slack on that later, so I think that's a great example. All right, here we go. Let's look at a traditional customer support process. So in customer support organizations that I've worked in before Slack, it kind of looked like this. Ticket comes in with a problem, somebody picks it up, they get to work, they kind of get stuck. Maybe they email someone back and forth. There's some back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They can't figure it out, so they escalate the issue. And then finally, they get that resolution out to the customer. For how many people is this familiar? Yeah. And then here's the thing. This resolution gets out to the customer. The person deletes the email thread. Maybe they archive it. But then the same issue comes in maybe 2.5 weeks later, and we go through this same process again. This is slow. It takes longer to get to the right answer, and it doesn't make the organization smarter over time. And so let's take a look at how this works in Slack. What we're going to see now is a quick video that shows us a customer support team managing an issue inside Slack. We're able to get the right people on the problem immediately. We're able to pull the right people in when they're not there, and we're able to get to that escalated solution for the customer very quickly, very empathetically, and just in time to make their day a little bit better. Cue the video.
If you work in customer support, this might mean resolving an incident. You're able to bring the right people across departments into the conversation. Marking the issue done in Slack automatically updates the status in Salesforce and notifies the channel that it has been resolved.
You can see the right people, the right tooling, the right information, getting to that right resolution, all leaving that important knowledge trail behind so that the next time this comes up, the team can find it and solve it even more quickly. Let's take a look at a newsroom example. Breaking news is the time when we want to make great decisions that are high quality, but also fast to break the story. This team is able to assign reporters, share images, and create that story and break the story before anyone else. Cue the video.
If you work in a newsroom, this might mean getting news out faster. You can assign reporters to the latest breaking news story. Share the right content in one place, and receive quick edits before posting the story to your audience.
No long forms, no long requests, better news, faster stories. Let's talk about sales, and let's come back to that example we heard earlier with contract negotiations. Getting that deal closed can often include a ton of back and forth that needs to be informed by data from different systems and different people. This will show you how you can close that deal with the right people, the right information, at the right time.
If you work in sales, this could include collaborating quickly to close an important deal. Share the pricing proposal when it's ready, and bring the right people into the channel to get it approved. Always stay up to date and celebrate the big win together.
All right. So those are just a few examples of how Slack can help your team make better decisions more quickly, accelerating value for your customers. But you've heard enough from me. What I want you to get a chance to do is hear from someone who is using Slack with their team every day to solve incidents and customer problems at a scale that is pretty fantastic and pretty amazing. So here to help me talk about using Slack to make better decisions more quickly is Jason Reynolds, Senior Manager for Application Support at T-Mobile. Give him a hand for me, please. Hey, Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Have you been enjoying your time in San Francisco?
It's cold here.
Yeah.
I'm from Atlanta, so it's about 90 degrees right now, so I'm a little chilled. Good thing I've got my T-Mobile swag on today.
I know. I like a man that wears pink. This is going to go well.
It's magenta, but that's fine.
So what's your role at T-Mobile?
It's Thursday, so it's probably DevOps. Sometimes it's app support, development, system reliability engineering, whatever your catchphrase is for the week. So we run a shop that's been traditionally kind of a monolithic SOA infrastructure shop. We put about 250 million transactions through our servers every day. It used to be about 2,000 to 3,000 servers that are just physical on-prem services, but now we're transforming it like everybody else in the room, going through our digital transformation, and trying to take that to more, digital services, API-based services through the cloud, cloud-based, cloud-native.
So I heard a bit about the magenta yesterday. What's T-Mobile's competitive advantage, and how does your team accelerate this?
I would say from our CEO down, it really has been our agility, our speed. We're known for solving customer pain points. Really, our CEO says that we just shut up and listen to the customers and take away their pain points, and that's what we strive to do, even at our teams as well. So that's been something that we've pushed down to our teams too, and so we try to do the same. So whether it's on the app support side, trying to make it easier for our developers to get their job done and taking away some of those impediments for them, or even on the development side, because we've got some development teams as well. We try to do the same thing for the app support folks, where it's kind of a cyclical nature as well. With our customers, they like us better, we do better work, and so it's kind of ingrained in our culture at this point.
Yeah, I think there's a really good point you raised there. When we can remove those roadblocks, it starts this incredible positive momentum.
Yep, absolutely.
Speed is a huge part of that.
And Slack has helped us with that.
So tell me about incident management. You have a pretty incredible story. So let's start with the before. So pre-Slack, how were you managing incidents?
So if I end up in the fetal position, I want to give you my safe word just in case, because sometimes I don't come out of it. Because I've been with T-Mobile for about 13 years now, and so when we talk incident management, it's been very ugly in the past. And so, you know, we've got so many different teams, and all these teams are in different locations, just like everybody else here. And so we would have an incident that would come in, it was customer impacting, and we'd have our eyes on glass team down in Texas that would kind of see it for us. They don't do anything but watch it and tell us, hey, you broke something. And then we've got a tier 1, tier 2 support that starts to triage it a little bit. They start making phone calls out to people in the middle of the night trying to figure things out. And then from there, you know, those phone calls go to some of my managers, some of those come to me. I've got text message threads with 7 or 8 different groups of people. So anywhere all the way up to about the CIO. So our messages were not very consistent. You know, I would get a message, you know, by the time it got to me and up through our CIO, I mean, the whole world was on fire at some point, where it could have just been something that was impacting 10% of customers. And so there was no transparency about what was going on, and, you know, it was just a whole bunch of phone calls and random text messages to groups, and it was ugly.
So I heard whole world on fire,
yes.
Random text messages. This sounds terrible.
It was. Fuzzy puppy to bring me out if I need
fuzzy
it.
Puppy, fuzzy puppy.
Yeah.
So tell me, like, now that you're using Slack, what does it work? How does it work?
It is much better. So, you know, we started, like I keep hearing from a lot of people, we started really just because we wanted to open up the transparency. We wanted just a way to communicate a little bit better versus the email and the text messaging and a lot of the broken communication that we were doing in the past. And so what we did is we started just creating different channels for different purposes. So we would still have our alerts channel where we do that, and we include our SOC team, we include our major incident management team. And these are teams generally we wouldn't include in our conversations before. We would just take information from them, but we were still very private. There was no transparency. We didn't want to share what was going on. So now we have those channels. We still have our little, you know, application support only channel where we kind of do our real internal communication. And so, you know, I could wake up in the middle of the night from a phone call, which I really don't anymore. But if I did, or even first thing in the morning, I can see what happened in the middle of the night because I've got a specific channel for issues that happen. I can go back and look at the alerts. We've also got what we call an outage communications channel, and so that goes up pretty much just to our VP level. But then we've also got an executive communication channel for anything that we know is going to hit their radar, to where we are proactively just putting things out there. And so the messages are consistent now. The transparency is really what has enabled us to move faster. Because now, you know, I get into some of these channels and I want to start asking, hey, what's going on? I don't even need to ask. I can just go back and kind of scroll through, you know, the last couple of hours really quickly. I can see the alerts. I can see the dashboards all in Slack. I don't get out of Slack most of my day because I can manage most of our incidents from that.
And you have quite a number of incidents, is that right?
No, we are perfect.
Yes.
All of our reporting.
Well, self-healing incidents.
Yeah, 99.99.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we've been able to do, and again, kind of what you've been hearing is, you know, we just kind of opened this up. We didn't force it on anybody. We didn't say, here's what you should do. Here are the applications that you can integrate with. We just kind of opened it up. And of course, we've got smart engineers on our teams. And so what they started doing was, you know, bringing in all of the notifications, and then we got to the point where, you know, we started seeing trends in some of the notifications, and that's ugly too. It's part of some of the challenges, maybe we'll get to in just a minute too. But we start seeing these notifications, and then now we're getting to the point where about 1,100, 1,200 self-heal incidents per week, to where it comes in through Slack, you know, depending on the average response times and some of the messaging that comes in, Slack can trigger it to go out and bounce these processes or whatever the incident might be. And so now we've got all these incidents that are just self-healing, which also tells me we've got too many incidents, but we've got a lot of incidents. So.
And I think because your team is there, able to make those decisions well and quickly,
Yep.
They're not getting to customers, which is pretty fantastic.
Well, and Slack's allowed us to enable them to make those decisions. Because before, it used to be, you know, they would have to maybe send somebody a text message or wake up their manager in the middle of the night. And, you know, by the time that all happened, they got online, saw what was going on, 2 hours later, it had already impacted customers. And now it's so instant. You know, we've got these different layers or tiers that it almost self-heals just even with the people. So
it's pretty fantastic. So aside from obviously that amazing statistic that you just shared, what other compelling benefits do you have now that were different than before you had moved this process to Slack?
I would say, we keep talking about the transparency because that's been very big for us. So not only with our team and bringing in major incident management, some of those functions as well, but just the transparency between the developers and the app support or DevOps or whatever you want to call them, getting the business involved so that they can start seeing the pain points that we're dealing with. And really it's that transparency, but that transparency is also what's allowed us to be more agile, which again is a very strong competitive advantage for T-Mobile.
You know, one of the things that I notice is the greater the transparency is in my organization, the better my agents are able to learn, yep. And the better they get over time.
Yeah.
Because they start to be able to go back and see, oh, this happened before and here's how someone handled it. Yep. Are you noticing that in your organization as well?
We are, and I think that's one of the challenges as well, though, is that's scary at first. For us, we were very siloed, which again, you've kind of been hearing a lot too. And we didn't want to give up that power to other people to know what we were doing and where we were messing up, where we were having problems. And so that was a big challenge that we had to, an obstacle that we had to overcome, was just allowing other people to see, what we were doing. So once we did that, though, like you said, it empowers the people, and they're not afraid to admit that, hey, yeah, we did mess up, and here's how we resolved it. And now, going forward, we can do this again, and we can do it faster because we've done this before, and we can see it in our history. And so that's been a strong enabler for us.
And it feels like what we heard even in the keynote yesterday with Lindsay about this idea of TOMO and creating a safe environment where people can play a little bit and learn a little bit. So it all feels like this really connects well together.
Yeah, it does. In fact, I bought about a dozen of her books on Amazon last night, so I'd recommend you do the same.
Yeah. My boss is in the audience, so I'll have her approve the report.
Yeah. I just asked for forgiveness later.
Yeah. Did you hear that? Duly noted.
Yeah.
So what are your plans for the future to further enhance your team's ability to do this as we sort of think deeply and scale up?
So our biggest constraint, I guess, right now is, this is really an IT tool right now. We've got maybe 90,000 employees. IT maybe at the most makes up about 4,000 to 5,000 of those. We've got an engineering department that's a little bit bigger than that, but 90% of our organization pretty much is retail and call centers. And so, not that I want all of my people to be talking to them all day long, but when we do have incidents, since we're talking about incidents, we need feedback from the stores immediately. And so right now we still have a problem where we still have to reach out to somebody over a Skype call to go and find somebody in a store, to go and find that call center person to bring us back feedback. And so we're still hindered right now, even when we're making decisions faster, to be able to get that feedback a little bit faster, because the whole business isn't ingrained in Slack yet. So to me, that's kind of our biggest challenge going forward, what we're really pushing for. And so that would help us on our side, but also, getting that feedback from the call centers and from the retail stores would be great, because we're the ones that enabled them to do what they're doing. So if we knew what their problems were faster, we could solve it faster.
Some great insight. We have a few moments here for questions from the audience, either for myself or for Jason.
I was wondering, clients I've worked with are always scared about installing Slack because what if someone posts something inappropriate to the channel? Was that a concern, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, that was, it's still a concern, because sometimes I'm that person. So that was one of our biggest challenges, because a lot of the time we would just have a Skype group chat going on, and it would just be our team. And so we talk trash about the other teams, and and not even just to be mean, but sometimes we've got vendors or something that are hiding what's really going on. We kind of talking about the low TOMO environments and how we encourage them to hide, because we pay them and we give them bonuses based on their 99.99% availability, and so they'll lie to you when they've really got an issue. And so we would have some of those challenges. So we started bringing some of these teams together in channels, and so there was still at the beginning a lot of finger pointing, and it's a lot of them versus us. And so we've done a lot of coaching on that, just individually as part of our teams, and just trying to not point fingers, just state facts as much as we have. Even if it's a fact that's leading towards pointing towards someone, we still just try to state the facts as nicely as we can. It doesn't always go smoothly, and again, we ask for forgiveness when it doesn't. But it was a pretty big challenge, because you've got you've got developers that hate this other side of the business that, is a vendor that's been, kind of messing with them for 10 years. And so it's definitely been a challenge, but it's gotten a lot smoother. And you can block people from channels too. But
one thing I would say is, the tool is the tool, and so if we're going to give folks email, they could send in appropriate emails, or if we're going to give folks phones and text messaging, they could do inappropriate things with that. And so it really starts with the culture, and it really starts with setting the right norms within your team, whether it's creating the right channels or making sure that you have the right emoji and teaching people how to interact in that new environment, because people may see that environment and they may think, wow, this is a social environment and I can behave as I would in a personal social environment, and norming them towards, nope, this is a work environment and let me show you how we work in this environment is a really critical part to making this successful.
And there are certain channels we don't allow GIFs in anymore because some of the GIFs aren't necessarily safe for work. So it just depends on the channel and the communication.
I have a question for Kristen about scalability and customer support. The example you gave walked us through a situation where an agent was working on an issue with a customer and was able to get an engineer's eyes on that and get it fixed out really rapidly. What happens if you have hundreds of agents and hundreds of engineers and it becomes a too many cooks in the kitchen situation?
So we actually do have hundreds of agents and hundreds of engineers, and we have gone through some pretty painful learning around what do we do when we have too many cooks in the kitchen. And for us, emoji has been a huge part of the solution, as crazy as that sounds. So when an issue comes in, we actually have a little template that we use to post it. So it either comes in with a red dot indicating it is immediate severity and I need eyes immediately, or a blue dot which is sort of normal severity, and then a white dot which is feedback, nice to have. And people have to include a description of the specific instance or event, and then also any data or links that might be related. And what happens is the person who has the expertise to solve it reacts with that eyes emoji, which then communicates to everyone else, this is taken care of, we've got it, move on to the next thing. If something happens where the person who has reacted with that eyes emoji can't solve the problem, they'll remove the eyes emoji and repost it to channel and say, hey, we have to get eyes on this, I couldn't solve it. And so it wasn't any fancy integration, it was just really giving people some easy emoji and some easy templates that everyone understood so that we could make sure that we didn't have too many eyes on the wrong things. Great question. Yes. Oh, I think we've got a mic coming your way.
Yeah, for your incident response channels, did you have to build things, or is it just at channel? How do you, did you use something up from the App Store?
We did, initially no. It was really just more about just bringing, kind of, like she was saying, bringing the right people to the right place at the right time. So it was really just about engaging the right people to where, like I said, a lot of times the communication would be done in one little Skype chat between 3 people. And so none of that information would be transferred to the on-calls that actually had to go solve the problems. So now it's all right there. They can see what's been happening while they were asleep as they're waking up and rubbing the sleep out of their eyes and trying to figure things out. Really, applications have not been the important part about what we've done. A lot of it was just bringing everybody together. That was the greatest solution for us. But yeah, on top of that, we've added a whole bunch of things too. But
yeah. So no silos, great. Open, everything is open, awesome. The flip side of that is there's a lot of information flowing now. A lot of people are contributing. How do you deal with the extra amount of noise, especially in your department there, where you have to react to things quickly?
Yeah, we've struggled with that because, and that was part of our concern as we started getting going, is we didn't want this to just become email again, to where it's an overload and nobody knows what's going on. Highlights has been a big help for me personally. The search functionality as well, but we really try to break down. We do have a specific alerts channel, and there's tons of stuff in there. And so we've got a team. Part of our tier 1 and tier 2 responsibilities is going through there and cleaning out alerts that are non-actionable, because a lot of times they'll just get dumped in there, and so you'll have hundreds or thousands of messages every day, and that's just noise. You know, nobody can react to that. So we really try to just keep the channels very specific. We don't do that. We don't have as many incidents as we make it sound like sometimes, but you know, even if we have 1 or 2 incidents a day, we can get just hundreds of messages. And so we do still have just one plain incidents channel where it's, this is the incident, this is what we're working on. So that's still that's real-time communications. So that's not a big deal. If you're involved in the incident, you're in that one. But there are a lot of other channels, but we try to keep them fairly specific to whatever the action is, or you know, for a specific release at night, we'll open up a channel just for that release. And so, and it's, you know, we've got some ways to identify pretty quickly what it was and what was in that release. And so the channels really help quite a bit.
We also, when we onboard, we actually do an activity where people have to look at different kinds of channels. And we actually, one of the things we teach them to look for is how many people are in this channel. There's 371 people in this channel. Before you post your GIF, you're going to take the attention of 370 people away from whatever they're doing. Is that what you want to do right now? And so we actually teach people to think really carefully when they're posting and where they're posting, how it could affect others. And that has had a huge impact on both how people communicate and also how people communicate in very large, high visibility channels so that they don't get noisy, because we certainly don't want this to become a distraction. We want it to become an enabler.
So you started to answer the question I was going to ask, which was about incident management. You know, I've talked to different organizations, some that have one incident management channel for, you know, operations or whatever, and then some spin up for every incident. You know, that to me is like a perfect example of using Slack to help, you know, different functions work together on an incident, because, you know, in our organization we have, you know, customer impact with customer support, we have infrastructure, we have our engineering team, and then we have management. So can you talk a little bit about how, you know, you decide, I'm going to open an incident channel for this, and who do I include in that too? Because that's one of the challenges we're having, is we sort of, all the managers are in there, and then the managers kind of disseminate that information down, and it's still sort of, you know, really just old school communication at that point. So
that's to me, that just takes too long, and that's why I think that we've stuck to just our incident comms channel for the most part for the main incidents. I mean, if there are smaller things that we're just kind of dealing with that are maybe not the high critical, you know, customer impacting things of the day, we'll separate those off into separate channels or something. But I mean, if it's a customer impacting incident, you know, we've got, like you said, probably 300 or 400 people that are in that channel. I don't want to have to go and start inviting different people to, because I mean, then again, you're looking at maybe 10 minutes to invite everybody, and, you know, 15 minutes for the next. Incident comms is the way we go for the most part. Like if it's something that's very important to us, that's been the practice that we've seen work, because we try to do that. There are other teams that'll do that, but you know, for us, if it's broken, it's going to be the call centers are down, retail stores, all of these, because we're kind of the middleware. Even background checks for employees, everything kind of goes through us at some point. And so if we've got something broken, it's going to be pretty high impact. So we've got to get on it and solve it right away. So even creating another channel and inviting people, it's too much time.
And we are actually, so we're working on the same problem. We have historically worked in our ops channel, and so it's been one channel, very similar. But we are in the process of building an incident bot where a / command will create the channel and invite the people and do all of that for us, so we can get to work right away, and it's in its own channel. So I will report back on how that goes.
When's that coming out?
Yeah.
New feature.
I will report back.
There you go.
I think we have time for one more question. I think we have a gentleman in the front here.
Do you know if there are any plans on your future roadmaps to support other APM platforms? I know that you have an existing integration with New Relic, but I was wondering if you happen to have any plans to support things like Dynatrace or AppDynamics or along those same lines, other APM platforms.
Yeah, so I know that New Relic is, I believe, the only one that we have now. But going forward, I would highly recommend checking in with Jassim, who's also here. He can give you a bit more information about what's coming next for that particular area. I don't know off the top of my head which ones are in the pipeline. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.
So great to have you. Thank you for sharing about how you work in Slack.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. As promised, we are going to talk about a few practical takeaways for how we can bring this back to our team. So remember, the biggest shift is the cultural one. Helping people get comfortable in those public channels, having people feel confident, knowing that it's okay to make a mistake in front of others so that there's good learning and high tomo is the first step, because everyone will become accelerated when we're all comfortable in where we're working. Your organization definitely has to be ready for it. And then 3 specific takeaways from the T-Mobile team. As you heard Jason, the adoption was organic. It didn't necessarily come from a top-down rollout. They started very simply and with their early adopters. And so I would highly recommend that for all of you. One way I describe this is don't water the rocks. Start with the folks who are most ready to try out Slack for this kind of work. The second is, it might take a bit of coaching, and that's all right. So the question that we had from the audience around, how do you get people used to working in this environment? How do you make sure that what they're posting is on topic and appropriate? That might take a little coaching, as any new behavior or process that your organization adopts might need. And of course, most critically and tactically, identify and create the right channels. If you don't have the right channels, the conversations might not happen in exactly the right place, which makes the searchability more difficult, and it also perhaps could become noisy or distracting. So these are 3 quick things you can take back to your team tomorrow, but if you have questions and you didn't get a chance to ask them today, don't hesitate. Hit the /feedback in Slack, tell them K-Swan sent you, and one of my team members will be back with hopefully a fast, accurate, empathetic answer so that you can supercharge your work for your team on Slack. Thanks so much.